In the first session on writing verbs in the present tense, we looked at one example, the verb jouer, which is a verb that ends with the letters er. Now if we can remind ourselves of what we did last time. First thing we did was we looked up in a dictionary the verb to play. And we found jouer, a verb ending with those letters, er. We took off the last two letters, and then we just copied down what we call the stem. This is the root of every part of the verb to play. The final stage was to put an ending on the stem depending on who was doing the verb. So if I was doing the verb, je, we'd put the letter E. If it was you, the letters ES. If it was he or she, the letters E. If it was we, nous jouons. If it was you, as in the polite form or to more than one person, you put EZ. And finally, for they, we put the letters ENT. But today we're going to show you that not every verb in French ends with the letters ER. For example, let's have a look at the verb to finish. And we'll zoom in again to make this slightly easier for ourselves. Looking through the dictionary, here is the verb to finish. We know it's a verb because it says verb next to it. And the first verb we come across in this dictionary is finir. And this time you might be able to see that it ends with the letters IR. Here's some examples of it being used. I finished. When does the school finish? And that tells us we have got the verb we're looking for. So let's put it in the right place in our grid. The verb to finish, finir. So what happens when it ends with the letters IR? Well, the first thing we do, just like with the ER verb, is we take off the IR. Which means we write fin next to every single part of our verb, just like we did before. But this time, we've got some slightly different endings that we just need to learn. I finish ends with the letters IS. It's the same for you finish. A little bit different, IT for he and she, fini. And now here's three very strange endings. Nous finissons. Vous finissez. And il and elle finissent. You may remember, just like with the ER verb, we don't pronounce these last three letters ENT. So that's if the verb ends with IR. Now there aren't really very many of those, so don't worry too much. You're probably not going to come across it very often. But there is a third group that you also need to be aware of. And this one perhaps you might see more regularly when you're looking through the French language. So, let's have a look. And the verb we're going to look for is the verb to sell. Again, we're going to zoom in to make it a little bit more obvious to ourselves here. And you might notice towards the bottom of the page, there's the verb to sell. We know it's the verb because it has verb next to it, a doing word. And there's a verb, vendre. Can you see what the last two letters are this time? It's R and E. Do you sell stamps? The house has been sold. It seems like we've got the right verb that we're looking for, but this time we're looking at this RE pattern. So let's go back to our grid one more time and put it in the right place, and let's see what we can find out. So we found the verb. It was vendre. Now, can you remember what we need to do to our verb? The first thing we do is we take off our last two letters. And just as with the other two verbs, we can put them in our table. you might spot something here that you might go and buy your sweets and drinks from vending machines. So you can see a link between the French language and the English language here. Now, what are the endings going to be for an RE verb? Well, they're not too different to the ER, but you do need to still learn them. It's S for I sell, je vends. Same again for tu vends. Now the il and the L are not going to add anything on the end. But the nu adds an ONS. The vous an EZ, just like the ER verbs, and you might now be able to predict what's going to happen to the il and L. It's ENT. And what are we going to remember? That's right, we do not pronounce those last three letters ENT. So let's just pick a word completely at random, see which one of these three groups it belongs to, and do something with it. Let's go for the sentence, we speak. Now, step one is we need to look up the verb in the to something form. So, to speak seems pretty logical. So let's go to our dictionary and see if we can find the verb to speak. Again, we go to the S section of our dictionary. We'll zoom in to try and make it straightforward for ourselves. There we go. There's the verb to speak. We know it's a verb because it has the word verb written next to it. And here's a word, parler. Well, it fits one pattern in that it adds the letters E and R. So this is a verb we can probably use to do the sentence we speak. So let's take this back to our page. The verb was parler. That was step one. The second step, we take off our last two letters. And this time, it was we speak. So let's have a look for we in our table. Here we go. The word for we is nu. And once we've found our word for we need to find the ending. So let's go along. Here's nu, and the nu ending for a verb that was ER ends with the letters ONS. So we speak is nous parlons. You can try some of these yourself at home and then ask your teacher to check them through to see if you're doing it correctly. Best of luck.